So what is in a name? Page 42 in your book, there's another consider the research. It's very important, especially in chapter 2, that we review different experiments in the discipline of sociology. So in this experiment, in what is in a name, two researchers, Marianne and Sindhill, you can see in the background, I found the original or one of the original published articles. You can go out and Google search it if you want to learn more about this. But they were trying to study discrimination, and specifically discrimination in the hiring process. So they started with the understanding or the knowledge that discrimination exists in our society against people of color. And so what they were looking at, they were trying to test in the hiring process, would the name of the person who's applying for the job affect getting a callback for an interview? So they had a handful of highly qualified resumes, and then they had a handful of resumes for lower qualified people. And they randomly assigned names to these resumes. And so what they did is, this was centered in Chicago and Boston. They responded to 1,300 different ads for job openings, and they sent out over 5,000 resumes in response to these job openings. And so what they did is they chose stereotypical white names such as Emily Walsh and Brendan Baker. And then they also use very stereotypical African-American sounding names such as Lakeisha Washington or Jamal Jones. And so they sent them out as response to these. And then they, what they were studying is the number of callbacks they were getting for job interviews. And what was found is that white names attracted 50% more callbacks than African-American names. And furthermore, whites with better resumes received 30% more invitations to interviews than whites with lower quality resumes. And in contrast, African-American applicants did not benefit from being better qualified or appearing better qualified. It didn't help their chances of getting a callback. African-Americans saw little benefit from upgrading their credentials. So what this experiment did was it documented that in hiring practices, HR managers, discrimination was happening as part of the hiring process. Again, the resumes were identical or closely identical. The only difference was the name that was attached to them. Another reason why that this research was important is this has been replicated by others. So this was the example that the book gave, but there's been other experiments very similar to this one, and the outcome has been the same. So what's important when we're reading articles or research is that when someone does an experiment that they outline, they use that the scientific method, those 7 steps that we've talked about in class, to document how they did their research, why they did it, their data collection processes, their hypothesis, and then their conclusions. So that way someone can follow up later on and replicate the research. But it also documents that you can use the scientific method to study social forces in sociology.